Hey, this is Stephen Hughes, your hardship real estate pro here again on the YouTube channel. Today, I have a very special guest. I have Emil Harker, who is a therapist, does a lot of marriage and relationship therapy. And honestly, as I always tell you folks, when I have people on the YouTube channel, I hate doing introductions because I always mess them up. And it's better if my guests introduce themselves. So, Emil, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, one of the things that I specialize in is high conflict relationships. And as when you're in the situation that you're in and you're going through hardship, the reason why people are in the situation they're in is because they haven't been able to make good decisions together. Too much conflict. So now we're making the situation even worse because now we have to make a big important decision and there's not enough coaching around how do I navigate the financial piece of buying, selling a home when you're butting heads anyway. But as a therapist, I've been doing therapy, relationship stuff for over 20 years. I've got a book out called You Can Turn Conflict into Closeness, endorsed by the world's leader expert in relationships, Dr. John Gottman. It's been out for some time. I'm terrible at marketing. I'm more normally just sitting in my chair doing my therapy every day. That's a little bit about me. A little bit something that's not professional is I love food. I love baking. I love being in the outdoors, surfing, camping. So I'm just a normal dude that loves relationships and food.
I think this is the perfect introduction. See, this is exactly your personality too. Just you got a big personality, very positive, optimistic. And just before we started recording the call, we were talking a little bit about how I have to do some of these real estate transactions where we're dealing with a divorce. And me personally, I would love to see people never get divorced, that they were able to not only court and date and figure things out before they were married, but even when problems arise in the marriage or relationship, however you want to define it, they're able to fix those things. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's too late.
Right.
And or there's extenuating circumstances of infidelity, abuse, who knows. But I think because I've read your book and we know each other, even if a divorce takes place, people are going to, especially if there's kids, really, if there's kids, this is what we're talking about. They're going to co parent. There has to be change in the communication between both of those parents. Even if it's only one person willing to do it, it's worth doing that work on yourself. And it doesn't come up in on the legal side of things at all. I wouldn't
Right.
say it comes up on the real estate side of things because I'm not a licensed therapist. The attorney's not a licensed therapist. But I guess maybe generally, let's say hypothetically, you've got a couple, they have kids, and the divorce is gonna happen. I mean, it's a done deal. The relationship's over. What do those 2 individuals need to focus on moving forward to co-parent? I think this is an important
Right.
conversation.
I think one of the first things that people need to do is make a decision to take action themselves. Oftentimes when it comes to relationship stuff, it's, "Hey, we need to do this. Don't you think we need to do this?" For crying out loud, the reason why you're in a divorce in the first place is because "we" is meaning nobody. Take action yourself because what you do will change so much of the outcome of the other types of decisions that you need to make, whether that's time with the kids, whether that's financial decisions that you need to make, and even to the point of how to navigate the selling of your house. It determines the quality of your life if you personally just engage. And you don't need your partner on board with you when you learn how to communicate differently. What's going to happen is things are going to change because you changed. And you're going to be able to be empowered to have more influence in your relationship. Because a lot of the decisions people make when they're going through divorce are reactive from emotions rather than strategic, thought through, and they're not deliberate, they're reactive. And so they don't want to feel bullied, so they make a decision. They don't want to feel manipulated, so they make a decision. And that decision may or may not be the best decision for them, but once that decision's made, going backwards is so much harder. So having some strategies on how to navigate the very predictable conversations, the very predictable types of statements that you're going to get will empower you to engage in these difficult conversations with a heightened sense of influence and a greater sense of confidence.
what it sounds like, and this is probably an oversimplification, and I've said it before, is in the end, especially in divorce, I think people think, "Oh, I need to change that person," or if they would just change this, if they would change this, if they would change this. In the end, the only person you have control over really is yourself.
That's
You
right.
don't have control over your kids, ultimately. You don't have
Right.
control over your spouse. But if you commit to figuring out your flaws and fixing them, that's important. And some people don't, I think, struggle with this in divorce, but in the end, those were two people that decided to get married and the relationship fell apart. There are things on each side that contributed to that. Maybe it is 99% one person and
Right.
then 1 or 2% the other, if we want to quantify it. But in the end, there's no perfect human being. So there's not a saint in the relationship.
As if you could do the math and minimize your culpability so that you have less, misery in the relationship. Doesn't matter how much you percentage. What we can do, even though this is one of the things that people say is you can only control yourself, right? Which is true. But we put a period there, the end, instead of since I can control myself. And since I have influence to a greater or lesser degree, then by learning the laws that govern influence, I have increased my ability to influence the other person. I can't control them, but what I can do is find ways to maximize the influence. So if I'm trying to be assertive and standing up for myself, and my partner, soon to be ex, feels like I'm trying to do a power move, then they're going to react based on the power difference, not what's important for the relationship or what's best financially. So, how I bring something up, making sure the other person feels heard and understood, can sabotage that power differential kind of thing so that they don't need to get defensive or react because there's no power struggle anymore.
What I see is a lot of people try to be rational if there's something that comes up.
Right.
Let's say, for example, hey, our daughter's really sick. We need to take little Susie to the doctor, blah, blah, blah. And she's been throwing up. Really rational. Parent on the other side's like, why are you making decisions about our daughter without me? Why did you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And it's just, it's totally irrational. So I think what you're talking about is you have to not approach it from being rational, but like you said, you go to that person and you somehow figure out how they're feeling and you can interact with understanding
Right.
their feeling. So then you can talk about the issue. It's very relevant even for kids because people will get upset about, like you said, that power dynamic of which parent's the better parent to kids. That's a constant argument of I should get more custody. Or it doesn't matter how that works out. In the end, you're both parents of that kid, and you've got to figure out how to communicate with the other in a beneficial way that is good for the child.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because that's an emotional topic. The house, kids, those are emotional topics. And sometimes one parent will fight for the house. I am not moving. I'm keeping the house for the emotional value it has without thinking through, am I going to be able to afford this thing? Can I maintain it? Am I going to be able to do the upkeep on it? Do I want to own this house? Do I want the responsibility of the house? Same thing with the kids. I want the custody of the kids. You know what? You want custody of the kids, then you're going to deal with all the headaches of those kids. You don't get a break. And the parent that doesn't have custody, every day's a weekend to them. You don't win by having the kids all the time. It's hard enough to parent with a partner. Try parenting without a partner, and then you'll be like going, you know what? I wish I had some help. Then why did you fight it? And the reason why we fight it is because it's emotional. We don't
Mhm.
have to do the emotional. We can actually anticipate and prepare for those important conversations. They're very predictable. And once we know how to respond to those situations, we can maintain composure, literally hijack their defensiveness so even they become more cooperative. And the more cooperative it is, the less money it costs because the attorneys aren't getting all the dollars. And the faster it goes so that you guys can move on with your freaking lives.
It's true because the more arguments you have, the more you have to really deal with that person in conflict, which no one wants. With the house, it's funny you talk about they don't think about those financial issues that will come up. They don't think about even some of the legal issues that will come up. I told you the story earlier where one parent just basically gave up and said, "Oh, you can stay in the house, blah blah blah," because the other parent was just very confrontational. Is the story I was told. And the house ended up being foreclosed on because that parent who stayed in the home didn't have a job. And then they got a job, and it was nowhere close to being able to pay the mortgage. If we took that story, hypothetically,
Yeah.
what could those former partners have done to prevent, because a foreclosure is a huge financial, but I would say it's financial ruin, really. You can't
Right.
buy a house for 7 years after that.
That's
I mean,
and so let's say both of them take their responsibility in the moment. Because I'm gonna say that let's say that the house is break even right now. Okay. They sell the house, they don't even make any money on it. That's not likely, but let's just say that's the case. So I mean, I'm saying that's the worst case scenario. If you're breaking even on the house, it makes sense to sell the house so that way you don't go into foreclosure. See, if you can't afford it, sell the freaking house, break even, and not have it go against you. But the problem is they're not having the conversation about what is truly best. The marriage is freaking over, okay? We're done with the marriage. So you don't even have to worry about the marriage. The next thing is what's it going to be for you personally? How is your life going to be better if you make the other person's life better? Because if their life is terrible, your life will be terrible because it will leak into your life. Their problems become your problems because there's overlap with the kids. They're struggling. They can't afford groceries. They can't do this. So what do? They're calling you. So the conversation when divorce starts to be brought up is the marriage itself. Once you decide to get divorced, the idea about fighting for your position for the marriage, it's already over. Okay.
mhm,
Bury the dead body of the marriage, and we now need to move on with life, which is parenting, decisions for finances, including what do we do about the house? So the conversation needs to be I'm going to understand the crap out of you before I share my opinion. The reason why is if I share my opinion too soon and they don't feel heard and understood, they're not going to be listening very good. So I'm going to say, hey, Jennifer, you said you want to stay in the house. Tell me more about that. Why do you want to stay in the house? Because this is where the kids have friends. This is where their school is. This is where we go to church. This is what's comforting. And my therapist says that we shouldn't disrupt them during the divorce. And the house is one of those safety places that gives them a sense of security. Even though we can't afford it, I'm not going to say that yet. I'm going to first validate and understand the crap out of that person. So I say, hey, Jennifer, it sounds to me like it's super important to you to have some continuity with the kids. They're going through so much change right now. The last thing you want to do is uproot them, pull them away from their friends, pull them away from their church members, pull them out of their school and their comfort. And that's what's really concerning you. So if we got rid of the house, sold the house, that's something that you're really worried about. Is that right? Notice they go, yeah, you get it. You haven't even shared your opinion yet. And they're feeling like, okay, you get me. It's safe to have a conversation. If I don't feel safe and I'm confused, I'm going to have anxiety, which doesn't open my mind. If I feel safe and understood, but I'm confused, now I'm curious. So after I take the time to understand the crap out of Jennifer and why she wants to stay at the house and keep the kids there, and there's no possible way we're going to be able to afford it, I'm going to ask her, so do you have any concerns about paying for the mortgage and stuff like that? What are your concerns about that? No, I don't share mine because she might get defensive. I asked her what her concerns are. She says, you know what? I know it'll be tough, but I think that if I'm really careful with the budget, I'll be able to pay for it. Boom. Validate that. Understand the crap out of that before I go to the next level. So you feel like if you're really careful and you really manage your money really well, you feel like you're going to be able to make ends meet, be able to stay in the house. Is that right? Yeah, yeah. Notice now they're feeling really comfortable. By the way, they're probably picking up a little bit of a vibe that you don't see it the same way, but you're not saying that yet. So is that right? Am I understanding you, Jen? Okay, cool. Once there's that pause, I reiterate. So you're really concerned about the house and you also feel like you're going to be able to afford it if you're careful with the money. Is that right? Yeah. I want you to feel comfortable and confident too with the house. Can I share you my concerns? Actually, I don't even say, can I share you? Would you like to know my concerns? If I say, let me share you my concerns, they may not be hearing it all the way. I want to see if they're interested in the concerns. If I say, would you like to know what my concerns are? I tell them without telling them that there's something wrong about their plan. There may be something they're missing, but they feel safe. Remember, safety and confusion create curiosity. If they're not feeling safe, then it's not curiosity, it's anxiety, and they just want to bail out of that conversation ASAP. After they feel heard and understood, hey, I have some concerns here. Do you want to know what they are? Chances are, because they feel safe, they're going to go, what are they? Now, when I share my concerns, I first have to validate. Look, I think it's important for us to find a way, if there is a way, to make sure that this kid's get to have sense of safety and blah, 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 blah. Because she's got to be on board with this conversation anyway. And if she feels like it's a power move, if it goes to a power move, then she make the decision out of an emotional reaction, not one that's thought through with the frontal cortex. So you say, I want to see if there's a way that we can make it so that the kids can stay and you can stay in the house and be able to keep the continuity of their friends and the church and blah, blah, blah. Sound good? Yeah. Now, when you go about trying to solve it, it says, with the amount of money you'll be getting from alimony, it's about XYZ. Child support will be LMNOP. Based on your current income, it's ABC. So if we put all those together and we look at our budget, it looks like you're going to be a couple hundred shy. And that's even if you're doing the very best you can. Am I missing something? Is there something I'm not seeing right here? Notice the process enables for that person to go, I guess I'll have to work more. Yeah, can you work more than 40 hours? Like you're working full time as it is there a way for you to ask for more money? And if there's a way, we find a solution. Yeah, I'm going to talk to my boss if I can get paid more. Awesome. That'll be great. Then we have a solution. And if there's a way that they can actually make the payments, wonderful. If they go back, she comes back from her boss and Jennifer comes back and says, I'm already capped out on how much I can get paid. The only other thing I can do is do an Uber, which means I have less time with the kids. And I don't want to do that. Now watch what the husband does. That sucks. That's gotta be really hard. Because as soon as the husband shares the solution, she has to fight it. Husband shouldn't share the solution, she needs to come up with the solution. So, man, that sounds like a really tough situation. That's awful. Notice I'm just gonna validate the crap out of her feeling. That's really tough. Let her sit in that. If I want to offer suggestions and help, what I'm gonna do is say, "You want some ideas? Are you open to some ideas? Would you like to explore some solutions?" That's if I even have them. If I don't, I might have to just sit on that for a bit and let that discomfort of the math help marinate in the mind to maybe reevaluate the commitment to the house. Because once the idea gets planted that maybe this won't work of keeping the house, the mind begins to shift and saying, okay, what are the other options? What are the other options? That way, when it comes to the decision to sell the house, it's not a power move, even if it's the best thing. See, just because it's the best thing for the family, for the kids to sell the house, that doesn't mean people make rational decisions. The things that we do in our interaction could inadvertently, based on our level of confidence, trigger a defensive move to fight and get into a power struggle that costs way too much money and may cause financial problems in the future. Because, like you're saying, if you sell the house and break even, you're broke. But you don't have a black mark on your name that prevents you from being able to get a loan for 7 years if you want to get another house. But if you go into foreclosure, you got a black eye in your house buying options.
That is right. Listening to that, there's one thing I thought I'd ask, maybe make clear. I think when in the story we told, you had Jennifer in the house and then the husband. I think it's important to note, you as the husband, this is not a tactic to manipulate your former partner. Because here's the thing, people will pick up on that, but this is like you legitimate, especially if you share children, should actually care about that person still, even though the marriage is over, because it's the only way you guys can move forward with your kids is to actually have true compassion and to truly listen to that person. Because really, the methodology you're talking about is very selfless. It is all about opening up to hear what that other person has to say and how they feel without subjecting your viewpoint or pushing any sort of perceived manipulation. And I would say that's very relevant for men because there's that big word narcissist that's thrown around. And that is a real personality disorder. There are a lot of people who are diagnosed with that, but it's also
It's
it,
a word weapon.
so yeah, I that's a perfect way of putting it. But in the end, we're not here to advocate manipulating people in communication. This is about making a fundamental change in yourself so that you are more open and giving to the other
Right.
person.
'Cause it
It's
doesn't matter if
accurate.
it's this house or holiday time or whatever the conversation is, and people know this, that when you communicate with greater understanding, like, there's a guy, Chris Voss is a hostage negotiator. Chris Voss speaks to the very science of how validation and understanding someone literally changes their chemistry. If you're being manipulative, they can smell it and they can feel it, and it won't respond. But if we're truly understanding them, that doesn't mean agree. If we truly understand them, they will feel comfort. Oxytocin is released, they feel trusting, they feel comfort, and then with that sense of safety opens their mind. And that's the process. And it's no more manipulative than bending metal around a wooden frame, following the laws that govern lift on a plane. We don't call that manipulative. We say, once you understand the laws that govern lift, you would be stupid not to follow the laws of lift. You can't build a square wing because you feel like it and expect it to fly. But we do that all the time in relationships. We decide what's going to work and what's not going to work instead of following the laws that govern relational and emotional lift.
It's funny you mentioned Chris Voss. This might be a little off topic. He co-wrote a book. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's going to show up because of my
Yeah.
background. It's called The Full Fee Agent, but really it's all about how to talk to clients. Basically going against, I would say, the past 50 years of hard selling tactics
Yeah.
and actually being very open and direct and understanding of people's emotions when you're
Right.
doing business with them. Because even outside of divorce, a house transaction has emotional baggage.
Right.
Yeah.
Apologizing for a high rate automatically sends a message that you don't feel like you're worth it and
Mhm.
tells them that they're getting a bad deal. So when Chris talks about, hey, my rates are obscenely high, all of a sudden they're like going, okay, then you must be worth it. The confidence isn't manipulative, it's strategic in following the laws that govern the outcome that we want. We can't make up our own rules. Okay. If we try to make up our own rules, we're going to fail. What are the laws that we use? I use the word manipulation when my tactics are not in the best interest of the other person. Okay. If I'm doing it for selfish reasons that are not in the best interest of the person, that may even be harmful to the other person, that's manipulative. That's the term we would use in social interactions is you're manipulating. If you're using rules and laws that could get you the advantage to their disadvantage. But if you're following the laws that you both get the best benefit, that's just called being responsible for the interaction.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to that. It's truthful because if I get called into the picture, for example, it's because they maybe have already had that conversation or an attorney has referred it. This is not just about trying to make my life easier in a real estate transaction. Like when you go through a divorce, it is very traumatic. It is one of the hardest things you can go through as a human being. But if there's kids involved, I think you have a duty to
Yeah.
teach yourself. And I think you do, and a big part of that is communication. And this again might be an oversimplification, but I feel like most of the problems in a marriage really do boil down to communication. They weren't on the same page, right? That's the colloquialism.
Yeah. And I think you're right. When communication becomes the priority, the strategies of communication, then you can work through anything. And this is one of those things that you don't need your partner's support or participation. This is something that you can do single handedly to change the outcome for both of you. And especially if your kids are involved, the quality of the life of your kids for the next 40, 50 years. And probably beyond that, even after you guys die, the quality of the relationship that you have with your partner as a co-parent will define the quality of their life long after you die. So I like how you say that. It's a responsibility that we have for our kids.
I know you've got some other appointments from when we originally spoke, but I'm curious if you had anything else to add before we close out our video today.
I think for even those people that aren't in that crisis moment, before they get in the crisis moment, invest in the quality of your relationship by taking the responsibility to change the relationship. And that way you can actually hopefully reduce the likelihood of being in a situation where you have to call somebody else or you sell your house out of duress, and hopefully the quality of your life could be so much better. So act now before things get bad, because it can only help you and improve the quality of your life. Appreciate being able to join you, Stephen, and I wish you the best of luck with all you're doing. You got a great heart and a great message of hope and supporting people in a very, very valuable and needed niche. People need someone that they can trust, and you're a guy that people can trust. So appreciate you doing what you do and sharing the word.
Hey, I appreciate that. Why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you? I know your office is in Station Park in Farmington. You
Right.
mentioned your book. I'm sure you have a couple websites. Of course, we can put it into the description box, but saying
Yeah.
it out loud is also helpful.
Okay. It's easy. It's my first and last name.com, emilharker.com, EMILHARKER.com. All the information can be found on there, but you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, all sorts of stuff just by doing a search. Go on Google, look up Emil Harker, you'll see a ton of different stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Bye,
for
Steven.
visiting with us today. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.
Sounds good. See you, bro.